Welcome to the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. I'm your host, Matt Bennett. Each episode we talk about the research and practical aspects of the trauma informed movement. This podcast is not designed to replace mental health services. If you feel uncomfortable or triggered by our discussion, please consider seeking your own trauma treatment. In no way is seeking treatment an admission of weakness. It is a chance to build resiliency and experience post-traumatic growth. You can find show notes, resources, and more at traumainformedlens.org. Welcome to the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. I am Matt, and I am having mixed emotions right now about this episode because this is the finale of the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. Didn't come to this decision lightly, but you know, it's been an incredible journey. I just looked it up. This is episode 146. Most of them about an hour long, which means you can spend several work weeks, maybe an entire week of consciousness, listening to the different episodes. One of the reasons I'm making this call right now, there's a couple reasons, and for all you listeners who've been through this journey with me, no matter where you jumped in, I just want to be fully transparent with you. Is one of the reasons, honestly, is when we started this, and when I say we, I just, if you didn't listen to some of the older episodes with Dr. Jerry Yeager and Kurt Moyer, we were sitting around a restaurant, actually right across the street from my house here in Denver. And it was probably 2017-ish or late 2016. And, the podcast, was still, in its, I would say, adolescence at the time. And, I was interested in doing it. I've been doing the Matt's Mumbling blog at that point for, maybe like 7 years. And, Jerry, Kurt, and I would meet, have an adult beverage and nachos or something along those lines. And we would have these amazing, deep discussions about trauma. I was sort of the person that brought the questions to the table. Jerry's been a mentor of mine, and Kurt, just one of somebody I have just tremendous respect for with his expertise and thinking around trauma and behavior as well. And so I was like, guys, what if we recorded these? Maybe made them a little bit more structured, at least have a topic, and share these conversations with the world. And at the time, again, probably about four and a half years ago, when I was looking for trauma podcasts, there wasn't a whole lot. I don't want to say there wasn't any. There were some out there. And I'm not even saying that when I Googled trauma or trauma informed in my podcast search engine, I found them all. But there wasn't really, there wasn't sort of the deeper dive into these concepts. And, we just started. Had no idea what I was doing. If you go back to the first few episodes, they weren't incredibly well produced. I've had 3 microphones, I think, over the years, just trying to find a way to improve sound quality. Even in later episodes, sometimes you would hear guests or, kind of cut in and out as well. I'm sure this isn't a surprise for everybody, but the budget for this podcast it's in the negative. Not greatly. I'm not going to say I'm going bankrupt putting this on, but there was no advertisements. We would joke about it from time to time with this as well. And so it's been an amazing journey. It's been amazing to watch, to meet the great guests we've had, to explore and learn from Jerry and Kurt in those kind of the first 90 or so episodes, and just learning from, everybody else. One of the reasons I've come to this decision to sort of book in the Trauma Informed Lens podcast, right now, is that everybody has a podcast. I even have 2 of them. And it just, like I said, 4.5, 5 years ago, there weren't, podcasts out there on trauma in really any meaningful way. And, now there are are tons of them. And I'm not saying mine's better or worse than any of them, but there's a lot of options out there. I also feel like about 150 hours of work, it's okay. After writing 4 books, at some point you have to write that final chapter. So one of it is, I can't tell you somebody I know, at least that we would both know together, that does have a podcast about this. The second thing goes back to an episode we actually did. Jerry Kerr and I did some New Year's Eve, kind of close out one year, open the next year podcast. And I think it was back in 2017. I was like, boy, we really need a celebrity to take this on, to really where we were with the next steps of trauma-informed care. It's just like, wow, if we could get, I think my example was George Clooney or somebody of that status to really be the public voice of this, and not there weren't a lot of us out there, and a lot of folks, that now that I've been in this arena for about 20 years, that had been in it for years before I even got familiar with the words trauma-informed care and the adverse childhood experience study. And now Oprah, I think it's still, and Bruce Perry published a book on trauma that's #1 on the bestseller list. So this is where a lot of my work over the last few years, basically the last decade and a half or so, almost 2 decades, have been really to put this on as many people's radar that would be in a room with me. And now Oprah's got a best-selling book on this topic. And so, is there a need for a podcast that's goal originally was to get the word out about this? And obviously it's evolved over the years as well. And so just the fact that all of this is now out there makes it seem like a good time to also, like I said, kind of write the conclusion to this amazing journey. I've decided to keep, I'm not deleting anything. I look at the 145 hours and I believe I've been in every one of those episodes as one of the things I can leave to the world. I think my longest audiobook might be 11 hours, 145 hours. So, it's something that I can leave out there as a resource for folks that are looking, again, for that deeper dive into this material. The other thing that, to be totally transparent with y'all that have been on this journey with me, it's also, a shift in what I'm looking to do. I've been able to really be incredibly privileged and fortunate that my work around trauma has put me in a position where I can try to look 5 years out, look 10 years out, and ask what's the world going to need to further this paradigm moving forward. 4.5 years ago or whenever we came up with this idea, the answer was a podcast. That would be a way to connect with thousands of more people, continue learning of people in the training. Trauma-informed motivational interviewing. Back, 2015 when I came up with that, just idea to write connecting paradigms. A few years back, it was to try to get a trauma-sensitive early education book out into the world. And, and my next focus is going to be, and if you've been listening to recent episodes, you've seen this splashed in, the idea of heart rate variability, which is so much fun because I wouldn't have an HRV app. I wouldn't have this great team working from a variety of angles of expertise to really and just hang in there, because in about a month we'll be launching our new version into the world. That I'm around these great people. We did that series on HRV here on the podcast, and it just changed my life again. And I really see that I think where the world sort of needs me right now is that the world's got a lot of people talking about trauma, and a lot of people that are doing a great job with it. I haven't Googled trauma in my podcast search engine, but I'm sure probably hundreds of podcasts would come up at this point, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. And so I think where the world is kind of calling me to be is there's this revolution in biometrics. that can, measure the stress response, tell us how we're doing, how certain interventions are improving our mental health, our social health, our physical health. And I'm really afraid that those struggling with trauma, poverty, if we don't find ways to bring this technology to folks who really need it most, that, folks that can't afford a $400 Apple Watch there'll be another health inequity moving forward. So I'm going to, it does take, several hours a week to do this podcast, and it was just, harder and harder to find that time and give it the focus that it really needs. So I will still have a podcast, the Heart Rate Variability Podcast, which I know we've had several crossover episodes, and for our listeners, you've got to meet my great partner, Jeff Summers. So please throw that one into your link. I can tell you we've got really relevant episodes coming up. We're taking a little bit of pause from that as we ramp up for this kind of version 2.0 launch, introducing some great thinkers in that podcast as well. So as I shift into that, it sounds a little nuts, but an extra couple hours a week to help hopefully make this successful and a great tool for you all doing the amazing work you're doing. That is my great hope. So with that said, looking back at all this, if I could just I had this barber when I was in high school, gave me this great advice. And he said the thing that luckily didn't turn out to be true is he says, these are the best years of your life. I'm not going to get into my high school experience, but they luckily weren't the best years of my life, thank goodness. But so that part of the advice luckily didn't come out to be true. But what Barber Mike did give me a piece of advice I've carried with me throughout any real transitions that I've tried. I have big transitions in my life. And he said, in my high school, there was a Dairy Queen right across the street with a little glassed in porch area. He's like, go get a Blizzard at Dairy Queen and just take a second to reflect on what the experience has been like for you in high school. And I took him up on it. I got me a Blizzard and just looked at the school for 15 minutes, half hour. I can't remember how long it was, but it really gave me that piece of closure. And I've done that with jobs I've had too. I've tried to, whether it's in the building, whether there's a Dairy Queen, at least relatively speaking, but to just spend some time with things. And, I want to do that with the podcast as well, because this has been such a powerful thing, and before we went into the COVID protocol, we weren't on Zooms for hours and hours a week. We weren't kind of as national/international as, we are now. So connecting with people all over the country, all over the world, through Zoom, and then pushing that out through podcast streams and YouTube was it was good practice for this. But one of the things that I really, as we went from sort of being early adapters into this arena to just, that now, like I said, there's hundreds of people doing trauma-related podcasts out there. It's just really amazing to meet all the folks working on this and that saw, whether it was the adverse childhood experience or the Body Keep score or the sanctuary model, all these great, Judith Herman's work, I gotta throw in her there because she was so central to me, Daniel Siegel, Bruce Perry, all these great folks that, brought us to this and create a community that used to be relatively small. I used to go into trainings and, maybe out of 100 people, 5 or 6 people had heard about the adverse childhood experience. Oprah's got a best-selling book titled, What Happened to Us? What happened to you? That so all of a sudden, it's everywhere. And, it's just being part of this from, again, back in 2003 where, as someone who I thought was pretty, progressive, pretty innovative in my work, I hadn't heard about it. And I think a lot of people had. I just got so fortunate to be supervised by Jerry, and started me on this, multi-decade journey, and probably is going to, if I'm fortunate enough to stay in the position where I can keep looking forward and saying, okay, what do we need next? What is the next piece of this? And trauma-sensitive schools was interesting because there wasn't really much out there on early education. There were some trauma-sensitive books, but those were just, kind of a handful in themselves. And all of a sudden, almost a flooding of the market. We're just in such a different stage in this paradigm taking hold, where we even is trauma-informed the right language? What about trauma-sensitive, trauma-responsive, resiliency-informed? I'm really fascinated with the whole polyvagal informed movement. I'm trying to throw the words HRV informed out there as well. So whenever people are trying to change the language of things, you've come a long way, at least for us with the initial goals, to get this information out there to folks. So it's kind of my Dairy Queen moment, where it's like, hey, this has been a great stretch of my life, much better than high school. I'll tell you that much. Much better than high school, and to grow professionally into this. Where when I heard this, I was Jerry's quality improvement director. Then starting to integrate this into, I was doing trainings with HIV providers here in Denver, and just those folks gave me such almost a laboratory to experiment and to get my language right and to learn with me around these topics, and then understanding the importance of self-care and trauma-informed leadership, and bringing those components in as well. It's been an amazing journey, and the fact that people all over the country, all over the world, let me be a part of their learning is a just humbling, to be seen as an expert who writes a book worth reading, who puts out a podcast that's, I don't know how many times it's been downloaded, but probably hundreds of thousands, if not pushing even higher numbers than that, in the different formats that it's pushed out into the world with. So, it's just been this amazing experience. And so when I'm sitting in the virtual Dairy Queen, sort of looking back at putting a bookend at a big piece of my career with this, 145 plus hours of this out there in the world, is just remarkable. And I want to be just, a lot of you have reached out, commented, connected over the years. I want to thank you for that. I know a lot of you haven't. I think I've responded to 2 podcasts, and I listen to them daily in my life. And I want to thank you as well for inviting me and the guest and Jerry and Kurt into your feeds in your life from time to time. And so, at the end of this journey, the great thing is that it's like, to me, I like the idea of a bookend, because it's not like, hey, I'm going anywhere. In fact, I got another podcast, the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. You can download that and keep listening to my thoughts and where I think this is going. But I just sort of thought here, as I'm a day away from being 2 weeks out from my second shot, it just seems like transitions are big right now. And as Oprah's book, Bruce Perry Oprah's book comes out, I don't know where that's going to take us. Are we going to get to policy? There are trauma, folks looking at trauma-informed states, even trauma-informed countries now, where it was just me and some progressive folks a decade or so ago that were even having dreams about those sort of language and words. So I hope that this podcast, as we bookend it and we end it today, was a small contribution to the amazing place where we found ourselves. As I tell people, we live in an amazing time. Very few folks get a paradigm shift in their lifetime. If you look at historically, very, very small percentage of people lived in a time where something came along that changed how we thought about ourselves or the world. we in the social service, the public health, the healthcare, the criminal justice, education, and everywhere else this is touching is we've grown up with a paradigm. Some of you may have entered your careers while this was, at least folks like me who are a little older in this, we're working hard to just let you know that this existed out there, and you've taken it to amazing places as well. So, we're just so fortunate, and where this also ties in with the neurobiology and its own, in many ways, parallel shift of psychology looks so different than it did 20 years ago. I don't know, like any time where I look back at my graduate education in the late 90s to where we're at now, radically different in really every way, shape, or form. And it's just like spectacular and humbling to have been a part of that, and to think that, hey, maybe now technology, a Bluetooth reader, and an app can quantify everything that we're, really trying to do. It's just the next really exciting step. And so, like I said, I hope this podcast, I know, for me, what I do, if I want to do it, if it makes me happy, if it helped me learn, I usually don't think too hard about it. I do it if I've got any kind of time and energy to do it. And that's where this podcast, it came from an idea, across the street over margaritas and nachos with Jerry and Kurt. It's like, hey, why don't we record this and let other people tune in, use the Zoom technology, use the podcasting technology to spread the word and to meet great people from all around the world doing amazing work. And so as again, we sort of finish up with the conclusion of this and the epilogue. I just want to thank you for being a part of this. Again, I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry. Just like I said, I'm shifting this time into where I think I can have the most impact, bringing technology into this. Hopefully something that I thought if I didn't do anything, price points and thinking somebody's going to come across in 10 years and do this. Maybe I could push this up and, get this on people instead of 10 years from a couple years ago when I approached Jeff with this idea of, should we do our own, app? That was about 2 years ago. So hopefully with this coming out, both being affordable, I'm also incorporating a nonprofit as part of this. So that's a little bit of work as well. That this is going to be a great thing moving forward, and we won't have this health inequity where only wealthy people get to measure how their strategies, their hard work is improving their health and wellness. That we can get on people who are experiencing homelessness, maybe helping if we can help figure a way to get this into schools that fully protect everybody's privacy, but we can show that this student's nervous system was a wreck, and that was the why behind the behavior. And we don't want to suspend them or expel them because their nervous system was traumatized at the time that this was all happening. And so I think there's a lot of great stuff out there. And again, I just want to thank you for taking this journey with me over these years. And as we transition into whatever new normal, that word even sounds a little old at this point. But as we get vaccinated and we open up, the world again. Also, I would just encourage you, to go to your virtual, whatever your Dairy Queen is. Like I said, for me, it's staring into this camera that I spend hours talking into at this point. But what's next for you? What have you learned from this part of the experience? We've been through hell. We've had to bring our best selves. And as we think about our own recovery, appreciate the great work that you've done. And, whether you're new to the field, we need you. Like I said, our policies, our criminal justice system, really even some of our social service systems are not really trauma-informed. Our schools are not trauma-informed yet. There's folks doing great work. I'm not saying every school's not, but we have so much work to do. So if you're new to the party, welcome. If you've been here from the beginning, thank you for all the great work you do. Again, you can find more information of me at connectingparadigms.org, also at optimalhrv.com. Those are my two hubs right now. And I just want to, again, thank you for listening, and I will see you in another venue soon. Goodbye. Take care of yourselves, my friends.